So hi and welcome to today's video. Today I would like to have a bit of a ramble, as I tend to do, about gear. This is in reaction to some of the latest announcements. The Sony A1, the Nikon Z9, the Canon R1. All this high-tech new stuff that's coming out. And I just want to have a chat about that. I'll also tell you about my my gear that I'm using for weddings for 2021 and why I've got this gear and not some of the other stuff that I could have. Also mention that in 1 week's time, 7 days, I have my first boudoir shoot of this year. I'm going to do some behind the scenes video of that and then put together a video. If you'd like to watch that, if you would subscribe and hit the bell, you'll get notified and you'll get to see that video, because I think it's useful also not just to talk about gear but to see how it gets used, and this is a proper paid boudoir shoot, and you might find it interesting. It's 2021. I've recently changed from Sony back to Nikon. I changed from Nikon to Sony just over 2 years ago. Big mistake. I had a D780, D750. I shot, what, in 2018, probably 30 weddings. Also did boudoir and family, and the D750 was a brilliant camera. Absolutely loved it. But all through 2018, you kept hearing this stuff about you needed to go mirrorless, and mirrorless was the future. Sony had already come out with the A7 III, and everyone absolutely raved about it. You have to have face detect, IAF, and all this kind of stuff. And I bought into that, like I'm sure tens of thousands of other people did, and waited for the Nikon mirrorless camera, the Z6, to come out or to be announced. As soon as it was announced, I knew that I couldn't use it because it only had one card slot, and for a wedding photographer that's really not a great idea. So sold all my Nikon stuff at the end of 2018, changed to Sony, the A7 III, mainly prime lenses, 35, 50 and 85. I had a 135 for some time during that time as well. Never fell in love with the Sony. Everyone was going on about small cameras being better. I'm not convinced of that. I much prefer, this is my D700, I much prefer having something that actually fits the proportions and the size of a human hand. I haven't got big hands, but I found the Sony was just so small, the buttons so close together, it was very difficult to use. So no, I didn't like it. I didn't like the image quality. The photos had a very digital kind of look. Too sharp, too clear, too much clarity, too much micro contrast, no imperfections, no light fall off the edges. Just really had no character. A kind of smartphone. So I didn't like that, and decided that I would go back to Nikon, and 3 months ago sold all my Sony gear, gone back to Nikon. I've always had the D700. This is an updated one. I sold my one which was a bit beaten up. Got this. It's less than 10,000 shots, in literally as new condition. It hasn't got any scuffs, marks, dents or anything. It's absolutely fantastic. They are out there if you look. My main camera for weddings is the D780, which is just makes getting shots a little bit more easy. We have got face detect and IAF using the live view, and it is extremely good. It's as good as my Sony was if I want to use it. If I don't want to use it, I have the optical viewfinder, which for many shots is, for me, I much prefer, and it's even more user-friendly and ergonomic, and easier to use in the middle of a wedding when you need to change something. I can just do it instinctively, whereas on the Sony it was always hard work. I always felt I was fighting the camera. But even more important are the lenses. When I went back to Nikon a few months ago, before that I decided that I was going to spend a lot more time researching lenses, and that I would get lenses which I knew from my past experience of 6 years before that with Nikon doing weddings, what lenses did I want. And I went back through a load of my photos, through thousands of photos, and picked out my favourites, looked at the lens that I'd used to get that photo, and came to the conclusion that the lenses that gave me the photos that I want to give to my clients were all old lenses. So the lenses that I've now got, and this is what I'm going through 2021 with, are all D lenses, apart from the 50mm, which is a G lens, and they just give beautiful images. They're not perfect. I've got a Sony 50mm 1.4 art lens, which I guess by today's standards would, by most people, they would say, oh, that's a fantastic lens, absolutely beautiful. No, it's not actually. I'm again, it creates digital looking images. Yeah, they're super sharp, edge to edge. There's no light fall off. There's no this. There's no that. You know, it's pretty much perfect lens. So it's a very, very highly rated lens, and that's up for sale, by the way. But to replace that, I've got the Nikon 50mm 1.8 G lens. I need one G lens with its internal motor because the D780's got focus stacking, which requires the internal focusing motor. So I have to have one G lens. It's also a bit quieter for video. It's pretty well silent when it's focusing, which is an advantage. But the other lenses are all Ds. I've got the 85 1.4 D. There's an old zoom lens there, 18 to 35 D lens. The 135 f2 D lens, defocus lens. Beautiful, beautiful photo. That produces the best photos that I've ever taken. I don't get to use it that often, but when I do, I can absolutely guarantee beautiful photos. Interestingly, I just noticed these are all made in Japan. Oh, and the 35 f2 D lens as well. Those lenses are all made in Japan. The G lens is made in China. Not suggesting that the Chinese lenses are any way inferior, but it's just a thought that we've now switched from Nikon themselves having control of the lenses to passing the manufacturing to a company in China. Just a thought. So that's my lineup. It's kind of anti-technology, but I was also inspired by some guys using Leica cameras. Leica, my dream camera would be a Leica M10 with a 50mm 1.4 Noctilux lens on. We're looking at about £16,000, so it's probably not going to happen this year. But that would be my dream camera. It's small. The lens, the 50mm lens, the Noctilux lens, is about that size, but the actual body of the camera is obviously a lot smaller. And it's just simple. It's just about you and the subject. The camera almost is, so what? It's manual focus. The ISO range, even on the M10, on the M9, it's ridiculous. I think the highest ISO it goes to is about 600 ISO. 600. I mean, we're looking at 25,600, 52,000, I think, on the D780. Crazy. So very, if you like, low tech camera that's possibly around the best camera in the world because of the sensor and the lens, and it forces you as a photographer to do things in a certain way, and I think there's something to be said for that. I'm not sure that having a Sony A1 where you can just point the thing, hit the shutter button and have it fire off, was it 30 shots? 20 shots a second? Whatever. And just kind of, you know, pray and spray. One of those shots is probably going to be a good shot. Whereas making yourself slow down, using your camera you have got to the absolute best it can possibly do, I think that's a challenge that makes you a better photographer. Anyway, that's my thoughts. That's what I'm using. Hope you found it interesting. I'd love to hear your comments and your thoughts. And join me next Friday for the behind the scenes boudoir shoot. I'll see you then. Cheers for now.